So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over the GCSE past paper of June 2022 Foundation Paper 3, which is a calculator paper. And as always, I'll include a question breakdown in the description below so you can see which question refers to which mathematical topic. So let's get started on this June Foundation Paper 3, which is a calculator paper. So looking at question 1, it says what is 1/4 as a percentage, and this one should be relatively easy in the fact that it is 25%. Then for question 2, it says circle the number that is a factor of 10. So a factor is a number that divides into 10. So which of these numbers can you divide 10 by? And that is going to be 5. For question 3, it says circle the value of the digit 9 in 0.094. And 9 is a hundredth, so it's 9 hundredths, which is our first option. Then for question 4, it says simplify 4 times 2c. And so here we multiply the numbers, so 4 times 2 is 8, so it's going to be 8c. Then moving on to question 5, I'll just zoom in a little bit. It says write down a suitable unit for measuring each of the following things. So here for the length of a pencil, now for this you could either go for a centimetre, you could go for millimetre, and you could go for inches. Now you can give abbreviations or you could write the words out in full, that's absolutely fine. For mass of a pound, you could go for grams, you could go for milligrams, you could even go for ounces. So any of those, either the units or the abbreviation, would be absolutely fine. So then moving on to 5b, it says times for 3 parts of a journey are 20 minutes, 40 minutes and 1 hour 30 minutes. Work out the total time of the journey, give your answer in hours. So if we add up the 3 times, we've got 20 minutes plus 40 minutes, which is 1 hour. And we're going to add 1 hour and 30 minutes. Well, 1 hour plus 1 hour is 2 hours, and then we've got 30 minutes. And what's another way of saying 2 hours 30 minutes? Well, it's going to be 2.5 hours or 2.5 hours. Then moving on to question 6, it says that pens cost 20 pence each, rulers cost 60 pence each. Saj buys some pens and some rulers. He buys 8 rulers. The total cost is £10. How many pens did he buy? So first things first, let's work out how much he spent on the rulers. So 8 rulers is going to be 8 times. Now because our answer is in pounds, we'll convert these units into pounds so we're not getting confused or getting muddled up in the units. So it's going to be 8 times 0.6, and that comes up to a total of £4.80. Then if we take about the money spent on pencils, then that's going to be 10 minus £4.80, which is £5.20. So then the number of pencils will be £5.20 divided by the cost of a 1 pencil, which is 20 pence. And if I type that all into my calculator, I get an answer of 26. Now moving on to question 7, it says that the bar chart shows the number of medals won by a country at events in 2008 and 2012. And we've got gold, silver and bronze. So the first part of the question says complete the statement about the medals won by the country in 2008. So here if I look at how many gold medals were won, that's 2. If I look at how many silver medals that were won was 6. So what times 2 gives you 6? Well, that's going to be 3. Then moving on to 7b, it says show that the country won more medals in 2008 than it did in 2012. So in 2008, if we add up the total gold, that's going to be 2 plus 6 plus 9. So 2 plus 6 plus 9 gives me a total of 17. And in 2012, it's going to be 5 plus 8 plus 3. So it's 5 plus 8 plus 3, which is 16. So the difference is 1. Well, actually the question is not asking for the difference, it's just saying show that it's more, and you can see this one is bigger or more. Then moving on to 7C, it says at the 2016 event, the country won an equal number of each type of medal. Here is a statement about the medals won by the country in 2016. And the statement is that the total number of medals cannot be 25. Give a reason why the statement is correct. And the reason for this is because 25 cannot be divided equally by 3. You could say something along the lines of that 3 is not a factor of 25. You could also say that 25 is not a multiple of 3. So anything along those lines would be absolutely fine. Then moving on to question 8. It says that in this question, 1 litre equals 1,000 millilitres. A mixture is made using white paint and red paint, and it says the amount of white paint equals the amount of red paint divided by 7. 5.6 litres of red paint will make more than 6 litres of the mixture, but how much more? Give your answer in millilitres. So here, let's first of all work out the amount of white paint. So that's going to be, well, the amount of red that we've got is 5.6. So 5.6 divided by 7, and that gives me a total of 0.8 litres of white. Now to make the mixture, well, that's going to be the red paint, which is 5.6, plus the white paint, which is 0.8. And if I add those two numbers together, I get an answer of 6.4 litres. So then to work out the difference, it's going to be 6.4 minus 6, which is 0.4 litres. Now the question does say to give your answer in millilitres, so then the answer then is going to be 400 millilitres. Then moving on to question 9, it says some students were asked about their daily exercise. 12 more students answered yes, then answered no. Complete the frequency tree. So the first thing here we need to do is actually the reverse of many of these questions, is rather than going from left to right, we're actually going to go right to left. So the first box we're going to complete till the first sort of eclipse we're going to complete is this one here, and that is going to be done by doing 35 take away 27, which gives me an answer of 8. Then from this statement it says 12 more students answered yes, so if I take away 12 from 35 I get an answer of 23. So that's the second one I've completed. And then for this one here, which is going to be the third one, to work this one out, I do 35 plus 23, which gives me a total answer of 58. Then moving on to B, it says one of the 35 students who answered yes is chosen at random. What is the probability that they exercise for at least 1 hour? So out of the 35 students, let's start by writing over 35. Out of the 35, how many exercise for at least 1 hour? Well, it's going to be 27. And does that simplify? No, it doesn't. So I'm going to leave my answer like that. Then for question 10, it says shapes X and Y are shown on centimetre grid. Circle the name for shape X. So here we just need to count the number of sides, because it doesn't say anything about a regular shape, because obviously X hasn't got all the sides the same. So a pentagon has got 5 sides, a hexagon has got 6, octagon's got 8, and a decagon has got 10. So the correct answer we need to circle is hexagon. Then for question 10, B, it says give a reason why shape Y is not a regular polygon. And the reason for that you want to give, so you can give one of two. You can either say that the lengths are not the same length, same size, or you could say that the interior angles are not equal in size. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. Then moving on to 10C, it says complete these statements, the number of lines of symmetry in shape X. So if I go back to this, the lines of symmetry are, here's one and here is another, so that's going to have 2. And the order of rotation for shape Y is going to be 4. Then moving on to question 11, it says here is a number machine and we've got an input and we've got a function and we've got an output. So all we need to do for this one is start with 58, add 26 and then divide the answer by 21. And if I type that all into my calculator, I should end up with an answer of 4. Then for 11b, it says here is a different number machine and it says work out the formula for D in terms of C. So if we start with D, then we just need to combine these two. So I've got C and I multiply that by 3 and then take away 5. So I need to write D equals 3C minus 5. Then for question 12c, it says simplify fully, and we've got our expression here. So I've got x's and y's. So if I look at the x's, I've got 9x take away 6x, which is 3x, and then y plus another y is plus 2y. So then with 12b, it says here are two expressions, and we've got 8a and we've got a squared minus b, and it says when a equals 25, the expressions have the same value, work out the value of b. So for this, we know that if they equal the same, we've got 8a equals a squared minus b. So if a equals 25, I substitute that in. So I've got 8 times 25 on the left hand side, and on the right hand side I'm going to have 25 squared minus b. Now 8 times 25 is 200 and 25 squared is 625, and so b is going to equal the difference between those two numbers. So if I take away 625 from 200, I get b equals 425. Moving on to 12c, it says simplify, and we've got 6w plus 10 divided by 2. Well, 6w divided by 2 is 3w, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So I'm looking for 3w plus 5, which is our fourth option. Then for question 13, it says in a bag, the number of green discs to the number of blue discs is in the ratio 20 to 11. Tick one box for each statement about the discs in the bag. So the first statement is that there are more green discs than blue discs. Well, that's definitely going to be true because the number of parts for green is bigger than the number of parts for blue. Then it says then there are a total of 31 discs. Well, 20 plus 11 is correct, but that ratio might be simplified, so it could have multiples of 31. So for this one, we just need to tick that we cannot tell. Then for question 14, it says 20 students were asked how many video games they played last month. The chart shows information about the results. And for 14a, it says how many students played more than 2 games. Well, the ones that made 3 were 4. Who played 4 was 1, and who played 5 was 3. So all I need to do is just add those numbers up. So 4 plus 1 plus 3 gives me an answer of 8. Then for 14b, it says work out the mean number of games played, give your answer as a decimal. Well, if I go back to the graph, so what I need to do here is, first of all, if I just make a little table, hopefully it'll make a bit of sense of what I'm doing. So I've got number of games, number of students. So if I create this as a table, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the number of students is 7, 5, 4, 1, and 3. Now this is what we call the frequency table. So here, this is my X, this is my F. So I then need to create a FX column, and an FX column is done by multiplying the first column by the second column, or the X value multiplied by the frequency. So here I've got 7, 10, 12, 4, and 15. And if I total all of those things up, I get a total of 48. And how many students there were altogether is 20. So then the mean is going to be 48 divided by 20, which gives me an answer of 2.4. And that's for B. Then for 15.8 it says work out multiple of 60 that is closest to 400. Now you can either use your calculator for this for 2 marks and just keep on adding 60 and see which one's closer to 400, or you can try and do it with using a bit of math knowledge. Well, if I do 400 divided by 60 and I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 6.6 recurring. So that rounded up is closest to 7. So then if I then do 7 times 60, that's going to equal 420. And if I double check by going for one number smaller, 6 times 60 is 360. So out of those two numbers, which one is closest to 400? Well, that one's plus 20. This one's minus 40. So the answer then is going to be 420. For question 15b, it says work out the highest common factor of 12 and 18. Now the highest common factor is the biggest number that divides into both those two numbers. So here we could have 1, you could have 2, you could have 3, you could have 6, and that is pretty much it. So out of those 4 numbers, which one is the biggest number? And the answer there is 6. Then moving on to question 16, it says an empty container has a cylinder of a radius of 3.5 centimeters and a height of 40 centimeters. A tennis ball is a sphere of radius of 3.5 centimeters. Will 6 tennis balls fit in the container? Tick a box, yes or no. Show your working to support your answer. Now in terms of the radius, that's going to be absolutely fine. So if I just try and visualize and draw a little sketch of a cylinder, then the tennis balls actually fitting in the cylinder is not going to be a problem. The question is, will I be able to fit 6 of them? So if I just draw a circle, and if I know that it's got a radius of 3.5, it means then it's going to have a diameter of 7 centimeters. So then 6 times 7 will be the height of 6 balls. And that comes up to a total of 42 centimeters. Now the height of the cylinder is only 40 centimeters, so will 6 balls fit? The answer is going to be no, and the reason for that is because 42 is greater than 40. Then moving on to question 17, it says calculate 2 to the power 7 times 5 squared. So if I just get the calculator out and just reset it, and you can just use the calculator to work this out. Now the button you're looking for is that X with a little box next to it. Sometimes you can have a button that looks like X to the power of Y. You can press that and that'll be absolutely fine. Hopefully you know how to use it. So 2 to the power of 7. Then just remember to scroll across. Multiplied by 5 to the power of 2. Press equals, and here it tells me the answer is 3,200. Then for question 17 it says work out the fourth root of 20,736. So again, get the calculator out again, and this time I'm looking for the box where it gives me the option to enter the root as well as the number that goes inside. Now on this calculator it is somewhere where it's just the second function of the button I use for part A. So if I press that button, I can then enter 4 and then 20736, press equals, and it gives me the correct answer of 12. Now recognize that this is not equal to the 4 times the root of 20,736, what a lot of students do, because it's the fourth root, not times by 4, so do not make that mistake. For question 18 it says circle the pair of alternate angles. Now alternate angles back in the days is what we used to call a Z angle. So which of these would perform a Z? I can see a Z just there, and the two angles are B and C. Then for question 19 it says juice and water are mixed together in the ratio of 2 to 7. Draw a straight line graph that shows the amount of juice and water to mixed together. Your graph must show up to 10 litres of juice. So if we're working with the ratio of 2 to 7, so let me just write that there, and we've got juice to water. Then what I'm going to do is then, if I start with 2 and 7, so 2 and 7 is just there. Then if I work on the next one, which is, and just double it, so that's going to be 4 and 14. So 4 and 14 is just there. Then I could multiply getting another one. So if I go for 10, so if that's 10, I've multiplied by 5. So I need to multiply this one by 5, and that becomes 35. So the biggest one I could fit is going to be 10 and 35, which is just there. So as you can see, I've got 3 points there, which is going to be, I would say, safe enough to see that it forms a straight line. And then all that's left for me to do is to join those points together, which again is incredibly fiddly on the computer. And so if I go for that extreme, the biggest point that I did, and we go for this thing, now we'll go through 0, 0, because if you've got 0 juice, you've got 0 water, and that's going to be the same. And then it's always good practice when you're doing these graphs in your test is always to go to the extreme lengths of the grid that they've provided for you, and there is the answer you should have. So just to go over some of the key points, that it should go through 2, 7, it should go through 4 and 14, and the other point that I picked here, which was 10, 35. Then moving on to question 19b, it says how much water is needed to be mixed to make 5 litres of juice? Well, here if I've got, well, the ratio is 2 to 7 of juice to water. So if the juice is 5, well, what do I need to do to get from 2 to 5? Well, I multiply it by 2.5. So then if I multiply 7 by 2.5, I get the answer of 17.5. Alternatively, I could have used my graph, in which it's going to be roughly about there. And you can see there that it's going to be, oh no, sorry, not there. It is going to be at this point here, which is just in between the box of 17 and 18. Then moving on to question 20, it says Adam and Bianca each throw the same bias coin. Here is some information about their throws. And Bianca then says that my results give a better estimate of the probability of heads than Adam's results. Is she correct? Tick a box. So for this, if we work out the total number of throws that each of these two actually did, so Adam threw 40 plus 14, which is 54, and Bianca did 60 plus 20, which is 80. So then the question's asking, who's going to give a better result? Well, you get better results from doing it more times. So Bianca's results will be more accurate because she threw the coin more times than Adam. Then moving on to question 21, it says use trigonometry to work out the size of angle X. Well, if this angle here is the angle X, then we can start by labeling them. This side here is going to be the opposite. This side here is going to be the adjacent. So I'm going to be using which trig ratio uses opposite and adjacent. Well, it's going to be tan. So if I write down the formula, so tan x equals opposite over adjacent, then substitute the numbers in. So I get tan x equals 10 divided by 4. Then when you're working out the angle, you've got to use the inverse function. So it's inverse tan of 10 over 4. And if I type that all into my calculator, I will get an answer of 68.2 degrees, and that's been rounded to 1 decimal place. Now, if your rounding is rubbish and there's no mention of rounding, then just simply copy the number that's on your calculator, and that should give you full marks. The only time you'll lose marks is if it actually specifies what they want you to round the number to. For question 22, it says that Laura works in a shop. The table shows the number of hours she worked on 2 weekends. And the question is asking us to work out the percentage increase of her total hours from weekend 1 to weekend 2. So the first thing we need to do is work out the total of hours that she worked on weekend 1 by adding those two. So on the calculator, well, I don't need to use a calculator for the first one because that's just 3 plus 2, which is 5. And then for weekend 2, we're just going to do 5.5 plus 3.5, which is 9. Then to work out the percentage increase or the change, the formula is the difference divided by the original multiplied by 100. So in this case, the difference between the two numbers is 4. The original, which is weekend 1, was 5. And if I multiply that by 100, I get the correct answer of 80%. Then moving on to question 23, it says here is a sketch of the curve of y equals x squared minus 4x minus 5. And the question for A is asking write down the roots of x squared minus 4x minus 5 equals 0. Now the roots are basically where the graph intercepts the x-axis. So you can see here I've completely obliterated the question by drawing on them. So here the answers are going to be minus 1 and 5. You can write those numbers in any order. For B, it then says work out the coordinates of T of the turning point. Now the turning point is, as you can see right there, and it's going to be in between the two roots. So the number that's in between minus 1 and 5 is 2. So that means that the x-ordinate of the turning point is going to be 2. So I can write 2 in the first coordinate. Then to work out the y value, well, if I write down the formula, which is y squared minus 4x minus 5, and I substitute x equals 2, so it's going to be 2 squared minus 4 times 2, take away 5. And if I type that all into my calculator, work it out, it gives me an answer of minus 9. So the turning point coordinate will be 2 minus 9. Then for question 24, it says A is an arithmetic progression. Here is the first 4 terms, and we've got 13, 16, 19, and 22. G is a geometric progression, and here is the first 4 terms. And it says that the nth term of A equals the 8th term of G. Work out the value of n. So for this, let's first of all work out the nth term of A. So the nth term of A, well, the difference between each of these terms is plus 3, so I'm going to end up with 3n in the formula. Now what I need to do to get from 3 to the first term in our arithmetic progression, which is 13, well, I need to add 10. So that means that the nth term of A is going to be 3n plus 10. Now to work out the 8th term, well, they've already given me the first 4, so if I just do 4 little dashes. Now the geometric progression is basically doubling in numbers. So that means that the next number is going to be double of 16, which is 32. The next number is going to be double of 32, which is 64. The next one's going to be double of 64, which is 128. And the 8th term is going to be double of 128, which is 256. So the 8th term of B is going to be 256. Now for them both to be equal, we've got 3n plus 10 equals 256, and you can see I've created an equation. So here I just need to solve it. So I take away 10, so I've got 3n equals 246, and so n equals 246 divided by 3, and that gives me an answer of 82. Then moving on to question 25, it says the L shape is made from rectangles. The area is 44 centimeters square. Work out the perimeter. So first things first, with this compound shape, we want to split it up. And let me just label the shapes A and B. Now the area of A, I can work that out because I've got the 2 dimensions, which is 4 times 2, which is 14. Now the area of B, I can't work that out by using dimensions because I don't know what this length here is, which I'm just going to call x, and that's 2. However, I can work out the area because the total area is 44, the area of A is 14. That means that the area of B is going to be 30 centimeters square. So then working out x, well, the area of B is equal to x times 3. Well, I know that the area of B now is 30, and that's equal to x times 3, so x must equal 10 centimeters. So then on the diagram, I can then swap x for 10. Then to work out the perimeter, all I've got to do is just simply add all the lengths together. So if I do 2 plus 4 plus 10 plus 3 plus 10 plus 2 plus 7, I should come out with the correct answer of 38 centimeters. Then moving on to question 26, we're looking at vector calculations. So here we've got work out 3, and then we've got 1, 6 plus 2, 5. So here we deal with the multiply first. So we multiply the two numbers by 3. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 6 is 18. And I'm going to add that to 2 and 5. So the top number is going to be 3 plus 2, which is 5. And the bottom number is going to be 18 plus 5, which is 23. Then moving on to question 27, it says information about two fridge freezers A and B are shown. And it says that Grace buys one of these fridge freezers. She buys the one with the greatest freezer capacity. Which one does she buy? So let's go back to the diagram here. So in terms of the freezer, in this particular case in question in freezer A, we've got the total amount and we've got the ratio. So here what I've got to do to work this one out, it's going to be 330 divided by the total number of parts, which is 5. And let's work this out separately. So 330 divided by 5 equals 66. So each part equals, so one part equals 66. Now with this one, it's 2 parts. So 2 parts is going to be 66 times 2. And that gives me an answer of 132 litres. Then for B, now in this case it's only giving me one part, so 294 litres is equal to 7 parts. So then to work out one part, it's going to be 294 divided by 7, which is 42. So one part equals 42. So then the freezer is going to be 3 parts. So it's going to be 3 times 42. And 3 times 42 is 126. So out of those two numbers, which one is the bigger? Well, it's going to be 132. So Grace buys fridge freezer A. Then moving on to question 28, says Tom and Ardil are 2 runners in a 200-metre race. Tom completes the race in 24 seconds. Ardil completes the race at an average speed of 28.8 kilometers per hour. Who wins the race? Now for this particular question, there are so many different ways in which you could answer this question. And again, going through them will just prolong me talking and going through this paper, which I'm sure you're getting tired of. So for this, what we're going to do is we're going to just compare the speeds of these. So now to compare the speeds, we need to make sure that the units are the same. So we already know the units for Ardil, who's in 28.8 kilometers per hour. So for Tom, or shall I write Tom's speed, and that's calculated by doing speed distance over time. Now his distance is 200 meters and his time is in 24 seconds. Now I want to convert that into kilometers and hours. So I can write 200 meters. Well, if I divide that by 1000, because there are 1000 meters in a kilometer, that gives me an answer of 0.2 kilometers. Now I then need to work out what's 24 seconds in hours. Well, 24 divided by 60 will convert it into minutes. And then if I then divide that by 60, it will then convert it into hours. So here then I've got 0.2 divided by, and if I then do 24 divided by 60, divided by another 60, and that gives me 1 over 150. Now that looks a little bit of a mess, but I have got a calculator. So if I do 0.2 divided by 1 over 150, it gives me an answer of 30. And that answer then is 30 kilometers per hour. Now comparing the two speeds, if they're traveling the same distance but Tom is traveling faster, then obviously Tom is going to win the race. So as Tom's speed is quicker, he will win the race. So something along those lines would be absolutely fine. An alternative method, you could have converted Ardil's speed in meters per second, because obviously we can then work out Tom's speed. So if I just write Tom's speed in meters per second, well that's going to be 200 over 24. And if I type that into my calculator, I get an answer of 8.3 recurring. So it's 8.33, and that's meters per second. And then Ardil, well, for this, I've got 28.8 kilometers in 1 hour. So then converting 28.8 kilometers into meters, well, that's going to be 28800 meters. And then how many seconds are there in an hour? Well, there are 60 minutes in an hour, and there are 60 seconds in a minute. So it's going to be 1 times 60 times 60. So it's going to be 28800 over 3600. And that's in meters, that's in seconds. So if I do 28,800 divided by 3,600, I get an answer of 8 meters per second. And as you can see, Tom, regardless of the units, is still traveling faster. So the answer then is Tom. Then moving on to our last question, it says the mass of a baby is 3.6 kilograms to 1 decimal place. What is the error interval for the mass in kilograms? Now the correct one for 1 decimal place is going to be using the numbers of 3.55 and 3.65, which kind of discounts the first option and the third option. Now with error intervals, it can equal the lower bound, but it can't equal the upper bound, leaving me with the answer of 3.5, well, basically the bottom answer. And there we go.